Hi, everybody. Oh, I love it. I'm seeing the chat light up. I'm seeing all of these beautiful places you're from: New Jersey, South Carolina, Missouri. Wow. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're at. I'm presenting from Colorado today, although I now live in Spain. So, I'm used to the dynamic time zones. So I'm just so grateful to see all of you here. And I see some people from the Stormie Grace tribe who have shown up as well. And hopefully all of you, we'll all end up in each other's tribes eventually. I am excited to be here and be a part of the Llewellyn family for the first time. And so getting to participate in something that you guys have maybe done a handful of times. You've been coming to LlewellynCon. I didn't know anything about it. I was just sharing with Anna about that. So I'm excited to be here. And I'm hoping that today, in our time together, I'm going to be able to add a little something to your knowledge and give you something to think about or take and leave here with in terms of your astrology. Even if you're not a deep astrology practitioner yet, today, as I'm talking through, we're going to look at the big six aspects, and I call them the big six because I do think that the Quincunx is important. Even if you are at the very beginning or you have teeny tiny baby knowledge, that's okay. You're going to be able to work with what we're learning and what we're talking about today. And I'm hoping too that we're able to have a really somatic experience with the aspects today. I've created the visuals in a way that they're very basic, but I would love for you, as you're looking at them on the screen, to feel them, to really get the feeling of the way these aspects sit and what they light up in your own story, but also what they're lighting up in conversation. Because the love of my life in the world is language. I love language so much. It's the deep root of my little world. I have a ton of Mercury in my chart. And so coming into astrological fluency is what's really important to me and important to what I am putting out into the world. So I'm hoping you're going to leave here able to speak a little bit more astrology today, whether you're new or you're super advanced. I just want you to have something here that you can work with. So let me give you just a quick update on who I am in case we haven't met each other yet. I'm Stormie Grace, and I am an evolutionary and a humanistic astrologer. And the way that I explain that is that I came from the Stephen Forrest clan of evolutionary astrology, telling the story of the soul, sometimes the past life, but certainly in the current life. What is your soul here to learn and to do? What's the story it's working out and the mission that it's on? And I love that from the soul perspective. And then I pair that with humanistic astrology. And this is the very, you're a human being. So I explain it as, yes, you have a soul mission, but how the heck are you going to get that done? And that is the type of astrology that I practice. So I try to be the bridge of both of those worlds and give us practical application and also strategy to go with the language of astrology that we're learning to speak here. Now, like I said, for me, at its core and at its finest, astrology is a language, right? It's not just a belief system, it's a language. We speak it. We speak it in words. We speak it when you lift that little eyebrow. I love Ursula from Little Mermaid. She says, never underestimate the power of body language. So I think that we speak astrology even in our body language. However, we need to understand the way that it is spoken. We need to have a look at what nuance means. What's the tone of voice of this particular planet or this aspect? And when we're able to do that and realize that over centuries, this is a language that has been spoken, it has communicated, it has helped us shape, the weather of the day or the moments in our lives. This is where we really move to the place of not just translating astrology, but speaking it. And we are, in my belief, always, always, always speaking astrology because we're living it. As we watch our fellows move around the earth, it's amazing to me how often I'm watching someone live their chart and what they're speaking out to the rest of the world. And I'm doing the same as well. So I think that astrology is beyond a language, is a language and beyond. Now, the other thing that I want to share with you about astrology as a language before we actually jump into breaking down some of these aspects is where this talk and where my upcoming book actually come from. They come from me as a language learner. With the prominent Mercury that I have in my chart, the love of my life is language, and I'm a polyglot. I speak multiple languages, and I don't just speak language, I love it. I love it in such a deep way that when people are speaking a language I don't know, it actually makes my heart hurt. Like I wish I crave that I had access to that particular language. And so one of the things that was happening for me in my experience as a language learner, right now my target language is Korean, is that I would have all of this knowledge. I would get the grammatical concepts and I'd be able to go back and forth in class very well. But then I would leave class and be put in a real life situation. And it's like the words just, they were not bubbling up and out of me, despite what I knew in here, despite what I wanted to communicate from my heart. It was not happening, y'all. It was not happening. So really, this book that I have written and the way that I'm approaching language here is from a language learner's guidebook. And I have loved them because they are a beautiful place for me where it's like, I wish I just had a place to get started in the sentence. If someone could just kick off the sentence, or I had a guide to just kick off the sentence, I could start speaking, right? I could actually get the Korean out of my mouth. And I started to see this in the astrological community and landscape. There were students who were coming from brilliant and beautiful teachers who are good teachers. And what was happening is when it was time to practice, or when it was time to actually speak the language of astrology, it was like, just was stuck right here. They couldn't get it out of their mouths. And that is where my whole realization of, oh, we just need an astrology language guidebook. We need some help just inching into the conversation so that we can actually get into the flow of speaking it and get into the conversation, right? Memorizing, understanding what a planet does, these are all beautiful things. But if I can't open my mouth and say it out loud, this is going to be really very challenging, isn't it? So that is where this book, and that is where our time and our talk together are coming from. It is not meant to be impressive. It's not meant to be an authority on anything. It's meant to get you into the space of astro fluency, which is what I'm calling it. So let's hop in here and let's have a little exploration. Now, as I've said, the challenge that I think that we're up against is how many people love and are learning astrology, even some that are practicing astrology, right? And we hit the wall when it comes to not just the speaking, but aspects in and of itself, because they are technical. Astrology is technical as much as it's anything else. So it can be that they're technical, they're kind of hard to visualize and feel. So there's a disconnect that begins to happen from it, especially in real life. You know, how could I possibly visualize this energy for another human being? Well, that's where we're going to provide a little bit of solution here. But without understanding the aspects, the actual conversation that's happening, the chart stays fragmented, and then you have to live the rest of your life only as a Leo sun, or only as a this moon, or only this, and there's no deep integration in there. So this is where we're going to have a little exploration today, and my goal today is very, very simple. I just want you to start to hear the planets talk. I want to give you a guide to some sentence structure so that you can see what it feels like. If you've ever watched two people outside of your own native language have a conversation with each other, there's so much going on there, right? Like there's the eye lift, there's all of this going on. So we are going to look at that today and bring a little bit of fluency. Yes, thank you. Astrofluency. I've actually just trademarked that. So that's a very big deal for Stormie Grace. So thank you for saying that. Okay, let's have a little exploration into these aspects, okay? And I'm going to show you a visual as well after we talk about them. But first of all, let's talk about the first kind of aspect that we get into conversation with. And that is the conjunction. So this is what a conjunction itself looks like. I want to hold here for just a minute because I want you to look at this visual and have an experience with what does it feel when two energies are right next to each other. They're brimming together. What does this feel like to you in your body? And feel free to put that in the chat as you're looking at this and you're having this just somatic experience with what a conjunction is. What does that feel like in your being? I know for me, what comes up is I'm like, oh, like it's very powerful. It's a very powerful energy. Like I'm like, woo, there's a lot going on in that space. Intense. That's right. Two eyes. Oh, I love that. I love that, Barbara. Very good. Yeah. Right. So there's a lot of somatic experience. And that's the place to begin our conversation going, okay, we have some intensity that's going on here, but what else is at play? First of all, it's emerging. When we have a conjunction, we come together, right? We're bringing it together. They're typically in the same sign and very close to each other, but they can be out of sign conjunctions as well, right? It's an intense energy that's happening there. Now, the style of speaking that's going on is there, yeah, it's intense, but we're in some kind of agreement here, likely because they're in the same sign. They're like, okay, I'm being an intense energy, but I'm doing it in this energy, in this sign, and so are you. So there is a bit of agreement that's coming into that. Grammatically, if you think about it, it's like you smushed two nouns together into one compound idea, right? You got a conjunction. So it sounds like we're going to be moving as one. In a conjunction, those energies are moving as one. So example, you take the sun and you take Mercury. They're never far from each other, right? And you put those together. What this is going to start to sound like is it's an intensity. I think what I am, and I am what I think. Okay, the sun, I am, Mercury, I think, I communicate. So when we see these two energies together, we know that there is going to be a lot of conversation or a lot of attachment to the thinking being module here. Now, emotionally, language is as much emotional as anything else. It's focused. A conjunction is focused. It's focused. It's fused together. It can be overwhelming depending on the planets that are at play, right? So when we're thinking about this in this phrase book, what this is going to help you kind of decode is the intensity of the relationship that's forming here. And again, it can go either way. You know, we have a Sun-Mercury conjunction. That's typically pretty friendly, but we can have a Mars-Uranus conjunction, and that can go either way, right? All aspects are, there's no good aspects, there's no bad aspects. They just are. It depends on how the native use them, right? Now, with the conjunction, how far apart are they? They were nice and close in there together when we saw them on our visual, right? And many astrologers use an orb or a distance between them from 0 to 10. I am an orb snob. I give aspects 3 to 5. We're going 0, 3 to 4, right? 3 to 5, like 5 is really pushing it for me. My teachers, both of my teachers use an orb of 7. That's too far for me. So just know that if you see two planets, especially in your chart, and they are together like this, we're going to have an intensity of energy. And what they're saying is we are one. Okay, let's go to our next aspect. We're clicking along here. So we have the sextile that's happening now. And these are going to be 60 degrees apart. So let's have a somatic experience for a second. What does this aspect feel like to you when you're looking at it? Tell me what it feels like in the chat. What's happening here is when you're working with a sextile, it's going to be between two planets that are in signs that have a similar mixing nature, right? So in this example, we've got our first planet here in Aries, and that is a fire energy. And it combines beautifully with our Gemini energy that's in air. They understand each other. They're compatible. They want to expand together. So what we have here in a sextile is a pocket of ease and opportunity, but then we're going to intelligently take action on it, because in a sextile, we want to do things, right? Absolutely. This is a lot more relaxing than the intensity of our conjunction, which doesn't make it good, bad. It just means that the energy does kind of drop your shoulders down a little bit. Oh, Jessica, that's brilliant. Wings opening up. So what's really going on in conversation in a sextile? First of all, it's an invitation, right? It's an invitation. The door is open and you can take action here. So the style is very supportive. It's very supportive if you respond, right? First of all, the nature of their energies is very good. It's very supportive. Grammatically, this is a very polite request or a suggestion. I like suggestions. I don't like it when people tell me what to do, but I like a nice suggestion so that I can choose to take action on it, right? So what it sounds like when we're speaking a sextile is, hey, would you like to try this together? Love that. That is such an invitation. They're dating. I love that. So let's take a look at a sextile between Mercury sextile to Mars. Your ideas could energize your action. You're going to have an easier time and probably more luck taking initiative on something. So emotionally, that feels a lot more encouraging, doesn't it? It's a lot more encouraging. How do you know? The question is, how do you know when you are in or speaking a sextile with someone? Well, it will feel like this, right? Look at this energy. Look at even what this feels like. Are you hearing a lot more invitation? Is it like, yeah, we could do that? That's like a everyday common occurrence, right? Let's say you ask the checker at the grocery store, on what aisle can I find bananas? And they say, oh, yeah, it's actually going to be down to the left. Would you like me to go with you? That's a sextile energy. It's a lot more encouraging, right? It's going to speak a little bit more to you taking easy action. Awesome. Okay, let's go to our next one and make sure I keep us on time here. I had all that Mercury. We could be here for 5 hours. Okay, let's look at a square. What does this square feel like to you when you're looking at it? Just let the visual somatic experience happen to you. What does this feel like? Right? This is what I love about aspects. You can feel what it's like in terms of their conversation and their spacing from each other. Here we're 90 degrees apart. So what does this feel like to you? To me, this is always like, Whenever I see a square, I just think, yeah, all right. Yeah, they're bumping heads a little bit. It's a little hard. Like you got to turn a fast corner. I got to do something about it. Uh-oh, I'm out of street. I've got to turn, right? So it brings a little bit of intensity again to the energy that's happening there. So when we're in a square, it can be a challenging aspect. It can be an argument. We are in an argument. I see this, you see this. And so we're in a tension, we're in a friction with one another. So the square is going to bring our challenge, and that challenge will usually bring us motivation, right? It's going to bring us a motivation to get something done. In a square, I call it our 911 of the astrology aspects, because you have to do something to get out of the square. Think about in the square, you're being squished. You are here and you're being squished by this square, and you've got to do something to get out of it. Now you get a choice in what you're going to do, but the pressure is there. So grammatically, this is a sentence that forces two ideas to coexist, whether they mesh or not. Now, squares are going to exist in our qualities. So they're going to be cardinal, fixed, or mutable. Okay, if it's a cardinal square, what do I need to start? Where do I need to begin? In a fixed energy, it's like, what do I need to change, or where do I need to hold? And in our mutable energies, it's what do I need to surrender or flow to? And this is, we're in challenge. So what's happening between your planets here in conversation, it sounds like, I want to do this. And the other planet says, well, you can't until you do this. This is one of my favorite examples, Mars square Saturn. So if we envision Mars as kind of the teenager or the youth, right? and Saturn being the more adult, mature kind of time force that it's bumping up against. Mars says, I do what I want. I want to act. I want to do this. And Saturn is like, no, actually, not so fast. There's rules here. You can do what you want as long as it's in the rules, right? Like, oof, can you feel the intensity of that tension and what that creates? So it can be frustrating. It's growth inducing for sure, because I've got to do something, but I need to pick the something that's going to not cause as much damage but will create change. So in this way, a square can also be very, very energizing. The square, to me, is where fluency is built, and you have to build it through practice. You have to practice working with a square in your chart and see what you get on the other side. They do create a bit of a crosswords. Yeah, they are at odds. They are not feeling it. They are not feeling it. Okay, let's look at the trine. Let's have a feel with the trine. And yes, I'm sorry, the dots are not like perfectly beautifully spaced. But here's our trine energy. How does the trine feel to you? I even like saying the word trine. I just feel like it's like, whoo, there's a bit of a woo-saw here. Now, trines, although they are considered to be a soft aspect, they can also be a lazy aspect, and they can be problematic as well. And I'll talk about that in just a second. When we have a trine, they are always going to be between similar elements. So you can have an earth trine, a fire trine, an air trine, or a water trine. Here we see that we've got a planet placed in the position of Scorpio, ruled by water, and Cancer, ruled by water. So water, listen, these elements, they understand how the other one gets down, right? Yes, they're broadening the scope. It's like I'm seeing an old friend from across the room. It's like, oh my God, I love your show. You know, it's a very comfortable aspect. But what's happening here is that there's a flow. There's an easy conversation, right? There is an easy conversation happening here. And there's a natural harmony when you're in alignment with an element that is the same element of you. Now, in our charts, it can represent not only comfort, this is a more comfortable aspect, but it can be where there's a natural talent or a natural opposition, a natural opportunity that is available to us. So grammatically, this is a perfectly smooth sentence delivered, chef's kiss, no effort. You just understand it. Like the very first time I said a smooth sentence in Korean, I was like, well, I'm basically a Korean speaker now, right? It's that vibe. It's that kind of energy. So it's like, you get me. You understand me. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying, right? So an example, we put our benefics, Venus and Jupiter. Love and joy move easily through me. It's a lovely vibration because it's effortless and it's pleasant. Now, what can be a challenge of a trine is that sometimes the energy is so easy, so natural, that you don't actually use it. And it can create what I call a lazy aspect, right? We're like, it's just so easy for me that I just poo-poo it. I don't even think about it. And I'm not using it, right? So it can be completely like missed out on. All right, the Quincunx. Let's have a look at this. What does this aspect feel like to you? Oh, I'm so curious to hear what this aspect feels like to you. Tell me your feelings in the chat. What does this feel like? And don't worry, I'm going to leave a couple minutes to answer some questions as well. How does this feel when you look at it and you bring it into your body? Oof. This aspect? Yeah, Brittany, brilliant. It's coming apart. And I like to describe this. Yes, that's right, Eva. Absolutely. This aspect is awkward, right? It's awkward. It's like, oof, like what? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, could you scooch a little to the left or the right? So I like to call the Quincunx the itchy tag. It's like something's just off here. And if just a little something would get different, it might be better. So I call it the itchy tag aspect. And it is loaded with misunderstanding and awkward adjustment. You are adjusting, because what's happening here in a Quincunx, the elements, the qualities, they don't understand each other. So in our example that we have here, we've got still one planet in our watery energy of Scorpio, but then we've got another planet in the airy energy of Gemini. And it's like, yeah, you can learn to work them together, but they're not like, they don't get it. They're like, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I don't understand how you would like me to get that done, right? So it can be confusing. It's constant rebalancing and adjusting. So grammatically, a sentence where the subject and the verb do not agree with each other. Like, think about that. Like, it's even like hard to even speak that because it doesn't make sense. So it's really like we're just not speaking the same language, but we are stuck in the same room. Okay. So if you have the moon, Quincunx, Saturn, it's like, I need to feel this, but also I kind of need to suppress it. So it can really feel very disjointed. So if you've got a Quincunx in your chart, I want to tell you, first of all, it's awkward in the beginning until you learn to work with it. I have 2 of them in my chart, and they are some of my favorite aspects now because I've learned to navigate with them. And let's cover our last aspect, which is the opposition, 180 degrees apart. So what does this feel like to you? Tell me about this in your body. This is where conversation starts, is what does it even feel like to use these words and have these experiences in our bodies? That's as much a part of astrological fluency as anything else. So what does this feel like? Balance. Balance. Brilliant. That's a good way to see it. Whenever I look at it, yeah, opposite. We're going in opposition. Right? We're going in opposition. We're going in 2 different directions. It may be balanced, but we are definitely going in opposites attract. Paula Abdul, she's still hot. I don't care what anybody says. So when we have an opposition, first of all, it's debate. We're in debate. We're in mirror polarity. We are going in 2 different directions, right? Now, when we have this, typically in an opposition, there's going to be external projection that's happening. Something externally is opposing our internal nature. Now, the trick here, when you have an opposition, is to first of all realize what's happening. They both are going in 2 different directions. They're poling, right? Now, you can let an opposition get as big and as wide and as long as you want, and think about how that feels if your insides continue to be pulled, right? And you're not going to be able to drag that other energy a different direction. It's just going to continue to pull. So to work with and relieve an opposition, we want to find the sweet spot in the middle because you need integration. That's the way you relieve an opposition. Find where both energies are absolutely correct and start to inch back to the middle. The integration of both sides creates the relief. But the experience of the opposition in and of itself is that it's a compound sentence, but it's like the verses are opposite. So you and I are on opposite sides, but we're still connected. Right? It's very much so that kind of vibe. So if you have the moon opposing Uranus, I need emotional safety, but I also need freedom. So where can we create an integration with that in the middle? It becomes very revealing and clarifying if you take the invitation to integrate them. I hope this makes a little bit of sense. Okay, let me take a minute. We have, I think, just a couple minutes here to answer questions. I think I've caught most of them in here, but if you have a question that you've been trying to ask and I didn't catch it, pop it into the chat real quick and I will make sure that I answer it for you. Yeah, Venus and Mars. Venus and Mars in conjunction, trine in your 11th house, but Saturn is also in there. Yeah, it's not very, you know what? It doesn't have to be, Nancy. It doesn't have to be romance killing, but it can be that you have to be very serious about that. You have to take that seriously and apply a lot of integrity. Saturn is actually not here to like kill our fun. It's like, you know what? When you behave in integrity and you have discipline around this, it can be really good and really long lasting. So that's another way to just kind of think about that language. My favorite aspects, I do like Quincunx energies because I think it gives you something that you're naturally going to have to work on anyways. And I like sextiles because who doesn't like a nice soft aspect? Majority of my chart is actually Venus. So I like it when things are easy. Yeah. Born at the end of the house. Are we more of the next house or the next sign? Well, that will really depend on your chart. And whenever you have a sign that is at like 28, 29 degrees of a particular sign, whether or not you're going to begin to act more like the sign next to you, I always look at people's behaviors. I always look at people's behaviors because at 29 degrees of, let's say, Cancer, the availability and the emotional discernment is really going to be there, as opposed to somebody who's maybe out of 5 degrees Cancerian energy. They may still be learning to grow into that sun energy. So it very much so will depend. Sun and Jupiter conjunct at 2 degrees. Does this just simplify everything, Aries? Well, if you have Sun Jupiter conjunct and they're in Aries at 2 degrees, maybe, but what it can also do is in your sun, you maybe want to be bigger, right? Or there is a need in this lifetime for you to actually be bigger. But with Jupiter, you have to be bigger with wisdom and modesty. Now, of course, that will depend on amplify. Yeah, it would probably definitely amplify a lot of things. And the key will be moderation. What's my wisdom? What's truly wisdom and not ego? And what's moderation? Good. Yay. All right. So just to close this out, because I think we're just a minute over time, the sky is always speaking. The planets are always in conversation. And now I've put out a book that will hopefully help you and help our generations to come be your first step to real astro fluency. Thank you guys so much. And the book is, of course, available now for pre-order. I'm so excited to deliver this to you. And thanks to the Llewellyn team as well for such a beautiful experience in publishing. Thank you guys. I hope you have a beautiful day. Go do astrology.